Chapter 2. Chaos. A person who never learned to trust confuses intensity with intimacy, obsession with care, and control with security. Dr. Patrick Carnes. For some children, chaos is not an event, it is an environment. It is not something that happens occasionally. It is something that is lived in day after day. There may not always be yelling or obvious conflict. There may not always be something visible to point to. But underneath it all, something feels unsettled, inconsistent, and unpredictable. Over time, that unpredictability begins to shape how the child experiences the world. In homes affected by addiction, stability often exists in fragments. There may be moments where everything feels normal, where routines are followed, conversations are easy, and connection feels possible. And then, without warning, something shifts. The mood changes. The tone sharpens. Someone becomes distant, physically or emotionally. What felt like steady moments before no longer feels the same. For a child, this creates confusion, not because they don't notice what is happening, but because they cannot predict it. And when something cannot be predicted, it cannot be trusted. Living without consistency. Consistency teaches a child that the world is reliable, that reactions make sense, that behavior has patterns, and that safety is something that can be expected. Chaos teaches something different. It teaches that things can change without warning. That what feels safe one moment may not feel safe the next. That stability is temporary. Instead of learning to relax into their environment, the child learns to stay aware of it. They begin paying attention to things others might overlook, the way a conversation shifts, the weight of silence, the way someone enters a room. These are not small details to them. They are signals. And those signals begin to guide how the child responds. Adapting to the unpredictable. Children are naturally adaptive. When the environment changes, they change with it. In a chaotic home, this often means learning how to adjust quickly. They may become more careful, more aware, and more responsive to the needs and moods of others. They may begin anticipating what could happen next, not because they are overthinking, but because they are trying to stay prepared. Prepared for a shift. Prepared for a reaction. Prepared for something they cannot fully predict. This adaptation is not a flaw. It is a response to the environment they are in. But over time, this constant adjustment comes at a cost. When chaos becomes normal, one of the most significant impacts of growing up in chaos is that it begins to feel familiar. Not comfortable, but expected. When unpredictability is experienced repeatedly, the mind and body begin to organize around it. Calm may feel unfamiliar. Consistency may feel temporary. Stability may feel like something that could disappear at any moment. This can carry into adulthood in ways that are not always obvious. A person may feel unsettled in calm environments. They may anticipate problems where there are none. They may feel more comfortable in situations that are intense, unpredictable, or emotionally charged. Not because they want chaos, but because it is what they know. The impact beneath the surface. Chaos does not only affect what a child experiences. It affects how they begin to understand the world. It shapes their sense of safety, trust, and predictability. It influences how they respond to stress, how they interpret situations, and how they relate to others. Over time, the environment they grew up in becomes something they carry with them, not always consciously, but internally. The child learns to scan the environment constantly, adjusting behavior in response to those cues. What began as a survival strategy gradually becomes second nature. Hypervigilance becomes an invisible baseline. The effects of this normalization extend far beyond childhood. When instability becomes familiar, it quietly shapes a child's internal blueprint for relationships. If love and connection were experienced alongside manipulation, emotional withdrawal, or unpredictable conflict, the child may grow into an adult who unconsciously associates intensity with intimacy. Dramatic highs and lows may feel more familiar than steady, calm connection. Stability, ironically, can feel foreign. A partner who is reliable and emotionally available may seem boring, suspicious, or even unsettling. Meanwhile, relationships filled with volatility may feel strangely comfortable, not because they are healthy, but because they are recognizable. Boundaries often become blurred in these environments as well. Children may be expected to provide emotional support far beyond their developmental capacity, or may experience frequent invasions of their privacy and autonomy. Over time, this teaches them that their personal space and emotional needs are negotiable. As adults, they may struggle to establish boundaries or swing to the opposite extreme, building rigid emotional walls to protect themselves from further intrusion. Conflict also becomes redefined. Children who grow up surrounded by yelling, arguments, or emotional explosions often develop an unusually high tolerance for discord. What others recognize immediately as unhealthy may register as simply another disagreement. The threshold for what feels alarming becomes dramatically elevated. This does not mean the conflict feels good, it simply feels familiar. Another lasting effect of normalizing chaos is a deep mistrust of stability. When promises are frequently broken and plans often collapse, the future becomes difficult to trust. Even in moments of calm or success, the nervous system may remain on alert, quietly waiting for the next disruption. The body learns too. The effects of chaos are not only mental, they are physical. The body responds to unpredictability by staying prepared. Heart rates may increase more quickly. Muscles may remain tense. The system may stay on alert, even when there is no immediate danger. This is not a conscious choice. It is something the body learned through repetition. And what the body learns through repetition can continue long after the environment has changed. Threat pattern learning. One of the most powerful ways the human brain protects us is through pattern recognition. From the earliest stages of life, the brain constantly observes the environment and looks for connections between events. It asks silent questions such as, what happens before danger appears? What signals mean safety? What should I prepare for next? This process is called threat pattern learning. In stable environments, this system works as it should. A child learns that certain cues signal safety: warm voices, consistent routines, predictable reactions from caregivers. When a parent calls their name gently, the child's body relaxes because experience has taught them that connection follows. But in homes shaped by addiction, the patterns the brain learns are very different. When behavior is unpredictable, the brain begins searching for clues that might explain what will happen next. It studies the tone of voice, body posture, facial expressions, and even silence. Over time, the brain links certain signals with emotional danger. A raised voice may signal an argument. The smell of alcohol may signal a shift in mood. A parent's silence may signal withdrawal or anger. Even if the child does not consciously recognize these patterns, the nervous system does. The brain quietly stores these experiences and builds a map of what to expect. Eventually, the brain stops waiting for obvious danger. Instead, it begins preparing for it before it fully appears. This is how hypervigilance develops. The nervous system becomes highly skilled at identifying the smallest cues that something might go wrong. To the outside world, these reactions may appear exaggerated. But to the brain, they are logical responses based on years of learned patterns. The brain is not overreacting. It is remembering. Children raised in addiction-affected homes often become extraordinary observers of human behavior. This sensitivity allows them to navigate unstable environments with remarkable awareness. But the same skill that protects them in childhood can create challenges later in life. When the brain has been trained to expect danger, it may continue reacting to subtle signals long after the environment has changed. A partner's brief frustration may trigger intense anxiety. A disagreement may feel like the beginning of abandonment. Silence may feel threatening even when no threat exists. The nervous system is responding not only to the present moment, but to years of learned threat patterns. This is why many adults who grew up in chaotic homes describe feeling constantly on edge, even when life appears stable. Their brains are still operating according to the rules that once helped them survive. Threat pattern learning is evidence of the brain's remarkable ability to adapt. The child who learned these patterns was doing exactly what was necessary to stay emotionally and physically safe. Healing does not mean erasing this awareness. Instead, it involves gradually teaching the brain new patterns of safety, stability, and trust. Over time, the nervous system can begin to recognize that the present environment is different from the past. The alarm system that once needed to sound constantly can slowly learn when it is no longer necessary. This process takes patience and compassion. The brain cannot simply turn off years of learned vigilance. But with time, supportive relationships, and intentional healing, new patterns can form. Safety can become recognizable. Calm can begin to feel real. And the nervous system, which once existed in constant preparation for danger, can finally begin to rest. Understanding the pattern. Recognizing chaos for what it was can be an important step, not to place blame, but to understand the impact. Because what felt confusing at the time was not random. It was a pattern. A pattern that shaped how safety was experienced, how trust was formed, and how the world began to be understood. And when something is understood as a pattern, it can begin to be seen differently. If you or anyone you know could benefit from this book, please go to Amazon.com to order it. To celebrate the launch of this book, you can find it on Kindle for 99 cents. Your voice is a lighthouse towards someone else's healing, and reviews help others find resources. If you would be so kind to write a review after you have read the material, it would be greatly appreciated. The book has a built-in workbook to guide you in your journey. Thank you so much, Alicia Lynch.